What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or is it Captain America and the man formerly known as the Winter Soldier? Episode 6, One World, One People. So ultimately, season finale, end of what I assume is probably just going to be one season, because they're not, kind of similar to how WandaVision, like you end the season and it's like, okay, well now she's Scarlet Witch, and Vision is not really the same Vision that we know. Same here. It's like, well, he's no longer really Falcon, and he's no longer really the Winter Soldier. So you can't really, if you're going to do a season 2 with these characters, it's not going to be called the same thing. But there is talks that they are going to try to pick up this show for season 2, which I assume means they're going to take these characters into a season 2. But I don't know what the plan is. I'm assuming because they have so many different writers on different shows, I'm assuming whoever's like the head of Marvel, like I think Kevin Feige is, I believe. I'm assuming he's kind of like got an overarching idea and he's kind of handing these stories off and like, all right, so here, I want you to write this story and it has to end with this. So that way we can keep building that up. But everything in the middle is completely up to you. I guess, because that would be the only way I could think of to keep all of these stories in line, so that way everything sort of pieces together, because it feels like there would be no other way to make sure everything works out how they want it to. If so, then there would be a lot of disjointed feeling, and so far I haven't felt that, but that could possibly happen. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, the way this ended, I thought was pretty good. Like, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. There were parts that I didn't enjoy as much, and I'll get to that, but overall, my feeling for this first season and for, just this show and all the episodes and this final episode, I enjoyed it. I had fun. It was definitely much more Marvel feeling, which I think I talked about this a little bit, but it was kind of funny how in WandaVision, like, the people who are not typically Marvel fans love the first part of it. And then just kind of went, it was okay after that. And then the Marvel fans hated the first part of it because it felt so different. And they're like, what is this? And then once it got going into the more Marvel-esque stuff, they're like, oh, finally it's getting good. So this show is definitely much more for Marvel fans. Like I've said before, it felt very much like the Winter Soldier again, like just with the fight scenes and the espionage and all that stuff. So I enjoyed a lot of that. First, we'll talk about the one thing that I just could not get behind in this episode, and that's Sharon Carter. A lot of speculation about her. Is she the power broker? Is she working for him? Is she just secretly doing something overseas? She's the power broker, and that's about the base of it, and just nothing else. No connection to this Fontaine lady. Just nothing. It's just, she's the power broker. Story over. She manages to get her pardon, which means now she has access, because she's getting her old job back. Now she has access as the power broker to all these weapons and stuff. And that's the end of that. That's all we're getting for this season. I expected something more. And if the thing is, if this is all it's going to be, then at least give us some sort of reason. And that's the thing. It's like, part of the problem with how they're handling some of this is that the last time we saw her was in Civil War. She was a good guy. She was speaking at Peggy's funeral. She and Steve shared a moment. Fast forward 5 years and she's a bad guy. She's the power broker. She's amassed all of this power, working in Madripoor, working in the dark, like, parts of the world. And now she's selling all this stuff to criminals. She was selling super soldiers. Now she's selling weapons. It's like, we didn't get to see any of that. And there's going to be a few times I'm going to mention this, but what I felt that this final episode lacked that kept it from being truly great is the idea of show don't tell. There's a lot of telling in this show, it felt like. There were a lot of moments where it felt like there was more expositing and kind of like, oh, well, here's why this is bad, or here's why this happened, instead of showing it, instead of letting us experience it. I felt like that happened a few times. And Sharon, I feel like, is the biggest out of all of the things that happened to. Her story, we got told at the end of it that she's the power broker. We didn't get to see it. We hardly even got explanation as to why. She just is. And I feel like that's the biggest mistake the show made. Like, she could have been working for him, and then we find out who the power broker is, and it's some other character that we didn't expect, and it's like, oh, that's crazy, and we find out even maybe she's working against him, but that, I don't know, like, it felt like that was kind of what this was building to, was finding out who the power broker was and kind of working against them, but in the end, what it came down to was the Flag Smashers versus the GRC, and that was kind of it. The power broker was just sort of thrown in as like this sudden, like, oh, Bartok, or is it Bartok or is it Batroc? I feel like every time I see his name, I always switch the R and the T. So my gut instinct is telling me that it's Bartok, which makes me think that I switched it in my brain. It's actually supposed to be Batroc. I don't remember. But whoever the terrorist guy that she hired to help the Flag Smashers, like, he just blurts out, oh, so you're the power broker. And it just comes out of nowhere, and it's just sort of like, okay, well then there's your big reveal. And then she shoots him, Carly shoots her, Sam comes down, finds Carly standing over her, like, shot, and I also felt kind of weird that Carly didn't mention anything to Sam in that fight. Because, like, you know, she already kind of feels like he's fighting for the GRC and he's trying to help the GRC because he was helping John Walker. So she's already felt this way about him, like, he's against what I want to do. I kind of expected a line to drop like, oh, so what, now you're going to defend the power broker? And then that would be like when Sharon decided to step in and kill her to keep her from talking too much. But instead, she doesn't say anything about Sharon being the power broker. They get into a fight, and then Sharon kills her anyway. I'm just like, okay, so now Sam's still in the dark about who Sharon really is. Okay, so why was this whole power broker story, why was it important then? It just felt so important throughout the season, and then it just got pushed to the side in this final episode. Like, no, that doesn't matter. Sharon's the power broker, that's all you need to know. She's got power now. She has more power, she has more access. That's all you need to know. We're done with her story. You left me wanting more, and again, like I said about the WandaVision show, it just felt like they had some stories that were building up, chopped off. That's not important right now. We got these other stories we need to focus on. We'll talk about that later, but right now we need to focus on this. It just missed opportunities, in my opinion. The couple of things that I guess sort of felt I didn't like or dislike it. First of all, the stuff with the GRC. So they've kind of been back and forth on, I guess, how important the GRC is to the story. Because obviously, it's the main motivation driving forward Carly and the Flag Smashers, is they feel like the GRC is kind of abusing their power, you know, not really being fair to everyone. And that's been a lot of their fight. Problem is that we didn't get to see enough of that. And again, going back to Show Don't Tell, we heard a lot from Carly and a little bit from Sam how the GRC is not really using their power correctly, how they're sort of making these decisions with a bunch of other government people in the room. And, you know, Sam's line was very true. You're not, who's the other person in the room that you're talking to about how to solve the problem? Is it more people like you? And yeah, it's a very legitimate criticism. Like, it's just a bunch of high up government people trying to make these decisions on how to help all these people. Could also be flipped onto our current U.S. government. A bunch of rich, greedy people making decisions, and yet all these people are just like, oh, well, they're apparently doing a good job. But yeah, I mean, it is a legitimate criticism, but we didn't see it enough. It was just sort of talked about. You know, we saw, what we saw of it was just a few scenes here and there of, you know, this supply compound, you know, and Carly and her group going to steal all the supplies. And then we also saw, like, you know, some of the facilities that are very run down and they're not very well kept. So it's like we saw a little bit of it, but we didn't see enough to really kind of sympathize with Carly and her, you know, her movement. You know, and they tried to get us to, and you could see where Carly was a good person deep down, like she wanted to help people, but ultimately she blew up buildings. She killed a bunch of people. And it's like hard to get behind something like that if you don't really sympathize with her cause. And aside from the few scenes we got, a lot of their cause was focused on one world, one people, a world without borders. And some people don't agree with that. You know, there's been a lot of examples in history where open borders without any sort of care leads to the downfall of countries. So that idea is very divisive, and it's not something that everybody can get behind, which means some of your audience, if they don't agree with that, are not really going to sympathize with this person you want them to sympathize with. So I feel like if they wanted us to really sympathize more with Carly and really feel bad whenever she died, it should have been more, we get to see what the GRC is doing and what a really truly corrupt group the GRC is. But ultimately, they're just people, they're just government people, which flip way, way too easily, by the way. I mean, can you imagine if, like, politicians in the US, Sam comes up and gives that speech at the end to one of a real life politician? Like, can you imagine him delivering that speech to Nancy Pelosi? No, because she would filibuster you. She would not let you speak. She'd be like, oh, no, 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 you're wrong. Let me tell you why you're... Come on. Like, there's no real life politician that would just sit there and go, yeah, you're right. I've been a bad person. I'll change my ways. Shame on me. Shame on me. Because most politicians don't have that ability to empathize. They don't have that, like, honestly, if we're being truly 100% honest here, it doesn't matter the party. Most politicians don't do that. They pretend to. Some of them put on a real good act, like they are, like, caring people. They're not. They're in it for themselves. They're in it for the money. So Sam giving that speech at the end, I felt like was another moment where I'm just kind of like, I'm tuning out, because this is not real life. Again, if he tried to give that speech, they would be interjecting throughout the speech. Like, well, you're wrong about that. Let me tell you why you're wrong. Let me fact check that real quick. That's not right. Snopes, get on that. No, no, no. You're saying that we're doing that, but we're not doing that. Here's what we're actually doing, okay? So that scene, like, it just went on for a long time, too. And I'm just sitting there going, this isn't real. This would not really happen. Can we just move on, please? Because this idealized world where government officials listen is not real. Some of them do. Most of them do not. I'm just like, ugh. It was a little, again, sometimes the show can be very heavy-handed with its message, and it can be hard to watch because you're just sitting there going, can we just move on? Because you're getting a little preachy here. The other thing was, I don't know, I like the scene where Zemo shows up and we get to see that he had this whole plan in place to take out the rest of the super soldiers, you know, with his friend that had the plane that picked him up. That was a very, like, once that happened, I was like, wait, what just happened? And I see the old guy, and it didn't register at first, like, who that was. And I see Zemo in the prison. I'm like, oh, he set that up. How did he set that up? But he set that up. Okay. Zemo had the last laugh. But there was that scene right before where they're getting onto the van, and the guy, the military guy that's putting them on there, like, leans in, one world, one people. I'm just like, oh, are they going to try to break them out? Explosion. Why did you show that then? Like, don't get me wrong, I get they're showing, like, okay, well, there are still some people out there that are, like, flag smashers, and they're very, you know, believing in the cause still, that there should be no borders and all this stuff. Like, I guess that's what they were trying to show, but it felt like they were kind of going to make the super soldiers the focal point of the flag smashers, and maybe they were going to help them break out, and the flag smashers, like, were still going to kind of be there to rise up and still try. But then you kill off the super soldiers, so now who's going to be the focal point? Like, is there going to be a focal point anymore? Is there going to be somebody that they can rally around anymore? Doesn't feel like it. So it just seemed like a very odd scene to have in there right before you kill off all of the people that might end up being the focal point. Because the thing is, the other thing that I feel like was very another missed opportunity is this whole thing where Carly was going deeper and deeper into this dark side. And I'll just go ahead and say, I kept theorizing maybe there was something different about this serum. We see, no, there's nothing really different about the serum. It's just, it corrupts you, and that's it. And that's all we're going to get. We're not going to get, oh, this was a different type of serum. We're not going to get, oh, this serum, like, it doesn't bring out the more of you. It brings out something else inside you. We're not going to get any of that. It's just the same serum that Steve got, but Steve was special, and that's why it worked for him. I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. But yeah, so we see Carly's going deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole, And what was kind of interesting was to see some of the Flag Smashers who still wanted to support her because of everything she's done for them. Some of them were turning against her. Like Dovich, I think, was one of the guys, and then I think, was it Gigi? I can't remember her name now. But there was the other girl. She looks like the girl from Deadpool, the first movie that had like the super strength. She looked kind of like that girl in the face. It might have been that girl. I don't know for sure. But she was like very much not on board with what Carly was doing. Like you could tell by her facial expression, she was like, "What, we're killing people now? We're just gonna murder these people in cold blood?" She wasn't down for it. And then there was the other girl, the black girl that was there, that was like, "Yeah." So she was actually on board, and I was kind of thinking maybe there was going to be a little bit of rift in the group. Maybe some people were going to be okay with it, some people weren't. Didn't do anything with that. Just they're all dead now. Wasted opportunity. So yeah, there were a few things that just kind of were frustrating. But that's it for that. Let's talk about the good stuff now, because I want to end on a high note. First of all, the opening, I would say half hour, was all really, really good. It was intense. It was exciting. Bunch of different moving parts. You get to see, Sam in the new Captain America suit, which, after I thought about it, because I did the last review and I was talking about, are those not just wings that Wakanda gave him? Like, is that not it? And then when I see him fly in with the new suit, I'm like, okay, so that's what that was. Got it. I should have thought of that. Like, it makes sense. But yeah, seeing him fly in, he's got the shield, and seeing him use the shield with his wings and, the whole helicopter sequence, it was cool. Seeing Bucky just take down some people and ride on the motorcycle, the motorcycle launch that he did was freaking sweet. Some of the fight scenes were fantastic. John Walker comes in with probably... it's not my favorite arc in the show, but man, did they pull it out with him in the end. Because, I'm just sitting there and he shows up and I'm like, oh, it's getting good now. Because I'm just thinking, you could see the bloodlust in his eyes. You could see he shows up and he sees Carly and he's like, it's on. And then, he's fighting them and they're still kind of kicking him down, which I found a little surprising. Because I felt like the fact that he was able to handle both Bucky and Sam showed that he was going to be a little bit more formidable than just your average super soldier, because the people who normally took that super soldier serum were just normal people, and when normal people take it, they become more than average humans, and that's how that works. But he was already more than average. Like, they showed his reflexes, his strength were already better than that of the average human. So what if somebody like that takes the super soldier serum? What does that do? Like, how much better will he be? How much stronger will he be? And then in this episode, they showed he was able to be taken down by 3 people. And he still showed he was strong, and he was still a better fighter than one-on-one. But 3 people were just like, all right, boom, 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 you're down. Now we're kicking you. We're kicking you. We're kicking you. Like, it was kind of weird. So that was a little odd. But we do see, that moment where he's going after Carly, he's fighting her, and you could see, that's what he's focused on. And then Carly takes that moment and chucks the truck full of people, and I'm thinking to myself, well, that's not going to do anything, right? Because he just wants to kill her. He's very duty-driven at this moment, because he was already somebody who was just driven by, this is my job, this is what I'm here to do. And so the serum made him even more of that. It made him even more like, this is my goal, I'm going to do this. But then you see he freezes for a second. He looks at her, and then he looks at the truck of people that are about to die. I'm just like, here we go. Here's the moment. Here's your moment, John Walker. Are you going to do the right thing, or are you going to do your job? Here's where you get to decide what type of person you are. And so whenever the shield drops and you see the truck stops to fall, I was like it made me feel something. I was like, good on you, John Walker. You pulled through in the end. Because honestly, everything that he went through, I did start to empathize with him. Because what he went through sucked. He was put under all this pressure. Sure, it's what he wanted. He wanted to be the next Captain America. He trained. He did everything he could. And it's just one of those things where you try to take on the mantle. You can't. You can't be Steve Rogers. and he wasn't trying to be, but ultimately that's where he was. And so one of the reasons he hated Bucky and Sam so much is because it was kind of a symbol to show him they're better than you. You know, they were friends with the real Captain America. They're a symbol of the real Captain America. And it was just something that was eating at him. And then, you know, losing his friend, taking the super soldier serum to, you know, deal with the fact that he felt so unworthy and he felt so weak. It was just such something that was kind of relatable almost. Like, we've all been in those moments where we just feel like we're not good enough and we feel like we're just too weak. And so to see him come to this moment where he's been through so much, he's made a lot of bad decisions, and he finally has the chance to do the right thing and not necessarily, I wouldn't say make up for what he's done, because he's still got a ways to go before he really makes up for some of the dumb decisions he made. But this is a step on the right path, and then he does it, and it feels good to see him make that right decision. And then, you know, gets to fight with Bucky and Sam to finish out the episode, so I thought that was cool. Although there was one scene, and maybe I'm wrong about this, it could just be something I'm mistaken about, but we saw, you know, his shield was all dented, and he pretty much was done using it, because it wasn't a vibranium shield, it was just a regular shield, so it makes sense that he wouldn't be able to use it anymore. But then there was a scene where all of a sudden we see him, and whenever they split up to go after the rest of the Flag Smashers, there was a scene where he walked around the corner and he was holding the shield. And then next thing you know, some of the Flag Smashers get the notification on their device of where to be, and it's a trap laid by Bucky and John. And then he's not holding the shield anymore. I was just like, what was that one scene? Like, was that a mistake? Was that an editing mistake? Like, they shot a scene where he did have the shield, and then they decided, you know what, he was done with the shield, and so they went back and changed that. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that felt like kind of a bit of an error. Again, I don't know. I'll have to watch it again just to see if I'm wrong. We'll see. But anyways, but yeah, so that was a great moment with John, just to see him get to that point, and just to see all of them kind of working together finally, and I don't know, it was a feel good moment for me. So all of that was just fantastic. And then you get to the speech part, and that's when I was kind of tuning it out a little bit. That's when I was kind of like, all right, we get it. Holier than thou, that whole speech, government officials actually caring, not going to happen. Okay, can we get to the point, please? And then after that speech kind of picked up a little bit. You know, we got a little bit of a resolution thing, you know, the scene with Bucky and I forget his name now, but it's the man who lost his son. I'm not going to remember. But we knew that scene was coming, and to see it, it just tugged at the heartstrings. And then Sam, you know, goes to see Isaiah. Much more, because obviously they still have the whole idea, you know, black man being Captain America. Like, he's still got his feelings that it's not going to work. They're still going to judge you. Sam's got his hopeful optimism that now it's going to work. I was really hoping, because we saw that scene earlier in the season where kid's like, hey, you're Black Falcon. What, just because I'm Black Falcon? Why can't I just be Falcon? Should I call you Black Kid? I was really hoping that when Isaiah said, so, Black Captain America, huh? I was really hoping Sam was just going to be like, nah, I'm just Captain America. Like, I was really hoping that would have been a great line to follow that up. Like, yeah, he's a black man who is Captain America, but he's not going to be defined as a black Captain America. Like, that shouldn't be his defining trait. And then they whiffed it, and he said, damn right. And I'm like, no, come on, man. And this is why, like, some of these shows, they just don't land the punch. You know, they have a good message that can really hit home and be like, hey, we shouldn't be defined by who we are. But instead they're like, you know what? No, we need to show he is defined by who he is. He's a black Captain America. He is the Black Captain America, which is representing black people. Cool. So I guess race still defines us, huh? Is that what you're going with? Is that what we're going to go with? Is that how we're ending the show? So that was a little disappointing, but then they do end it with a nice moment, because he takes Isaiah to see that he got this wing installed in the Captain America museum I don't know if that's what it's called or not, but he got this wing installed to show the story of Isaiah Bradley and his representation. He gets a statue made. That was a nice moment. Seeing Isaiah finally sort of break and really thank him and show that he does appreciate what Sam's done. That really was a good moment to end it off. So at least they stuck that landing. And then we get to, of course, the Sharon stuff at the end with the whole pardon. Actually, that was after the credits. Before that, we just got a nice little moment at the end with Sam and Bucky cooking at his family's restaurant, or not restaurant, his family's house. I don't know why I said restaurant. It just sort of popped out of nowhere. But that was a nice moment. Again, this is actually, it wasn't really disappointing, but just a joke that I feel like really would have finished on a high note. We see Bucky sitting there with the arm, the kid's hanging off the arm, and he's just sitting there talking to Sarah. I just really wanted them to pull back, and Sam's just sitting there, and he just looks over, he's like, just that would have been the greatest joke to end it out on, but they don't do that. But they do still obviously hint that there might be something going on there. I don't know. It's funny. There's I think one of my favorite memes that's come out of this show is Bucky lying on the couch and he looks over at Sarah's kids fighting with the shield, and he's just got the big goofy grin, and it's got the caption like in his head like, I'm gonna be their dad one day. Just quality. Sometimes the internet does good stuff. Almost all the time, terrible. But sometimes it produces quality memes. But yeah, so all in all, I mean, there were very good moments in this episode. There's a lot of really enjoyable stuff. The acting was still phenomenal. Like, I feel like the acting in this show was really, really good. And, I mean, most of the time, Marvel has good actors in it. Like, it's very rare that you get a weird performance. It happens, but it's very rare. So all the acting in the show carried through. The story was okay. It was good at points, and then there were times when it got a little muddled and it felt like they weren't really sure what they wanted to do. The characters, Sam and Bucky were a great pair to have at the middle of all of this. Bucky dealing with his past, Sam kind of dealing with his past as well, but it's a different type of thing. Bucky's dealing with stuff that he did that was wrong in the past, while Sam is trying to deal with kind of the past almost being a burden to him and trying to take on what he's missed over the past 5 years and, taking on the mantle of Captain America. I mean, it was an interesting dynamic between the two of them, and they formed a good friendship. I like the banter between the two of them. Carly, while I feel like the sympathy really didn't hit home because they didn't make her fight really apparent to us. I still felt like she was sympathetic in the way that she showed she cared about people. And even though her stance may not have hit at home with everyone, even though what she did made her look like a terrorist, like deep down, you knew she was doing it because she cared about people. And I feel like that was brought out by the performance. I feel like that was brought out in some of the writing. So they slipped up with her a little bit, but I think all in all, they still carried it through with her character in the end, and they did a decent enough job to where some people probably cared when she died, but I don't think it hit home with... I doubt it hit home with everyone. I'm sure there will be some people who will be like, just didn't really hit me that much. Sharon, I feel like they slipped up on her character. It's probably the biggest mistake that the show made, but not quite enough to detriment it and make it a bad show. But I really do feel like I said before, it kept it from being a truly great show. Because I feel like there was a lot in it that made it enjoyable, made it fun to watch, made it intriguing, made it like an investment. Like you felt like you were invested in the show and you were on the edge of your on the edge of your seat. But then, the Sharon stuff just kind of kept me intrigued, kept me interested, and then just at the end. So a little disappointed in that, but all in all, had a lot of fun. Next up is Loki. Won't see that until June, and it's gonna be interesting because I think it's the first Marvel project that I worked on that I was a background actor in. So I actually do know some stuff. Not much. I worked 1 day. No, I worked 4 days. My bad. So it'll be interesting to review something where I'm like, oh, I know how that plays out. Can't say anything. But anyways, with all that being said, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts in this episode and this series as a whole? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all the good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Marvel product reviews. And I will see you guys when Loki comes out. Peace out.